Why do we not want to learn? Over hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors have been pushing boundaries and risking everything for the pursuit of knowledge. But now you cannot take a single class without someone asking the inescapable question, why do we need to know this? The answer is usually the same. It'll be useful later, or it'll be on the test, or it's part of the curriculum, so you have to know it. But when was the last time you learned something just to learn something? The word philomath, meaning a lover of learning, is derived from the Greek words philo, to love, and math, to learn. A lover of learning. Philomaths are few and far between, and I am sure that most people could look back on their lives and noticed a distinct lack of such people. So where did they go? Going into my freshman year of high school, I signed up for a humanities course for no other reason than to get the required credits. In that class, the teacher claimed that he would make us all scholars and create a thirst for knowledge inside each and every one of us. We were skeptical, of course. Who wanted to learn? But he did, at least for me. After emerging from my many years of taking humanities, I could truly say I was a scholar and a philomath. So what changed? The first aspect of why I believe that people in my generation no longer want to learn things is social media. Listening to adults go on and on about how technology is going to be our generation's downfall can be tedious at best and completely infuriating at worst. However, one must admit that there are kernels of truth to these arguments. In 2015, Microsoft published a study saying that the average human's attention span was just 8 seconds, which is comparative to the goldfish's attention span of 9 seconds. CNN later debunked the study and pointed out all of its inaccuracies, but not before saying that this study could be a relatively accurate prediction of our future. The first super popular social media of my generation was YouTube, which had videos that were around 10 to 15 minutes on average, at least the videos I was watching. But the creators on the app resorted to using eye-catching bright colors and false claims to draw in viewers, which did admittedly work quite well. There have been many examples similar to this, but of course anyone can guess which app is the most pertinent for me to speak about in this context. TikTok. TikTok's algorithm utilizes 15-second videos. Low commitment choices and the changing of the video in the mere swipe of a screen makes it easy for users to gobble up short-form content without having to utilize any real brain power. A popular choice for unwinding before bed is to lay in bed and mindlessly scroll through TikTok, and I cannot say I am not guilty of this myself. But this reliance on our information being served up in 15-second increments has done massive amounts of damage on the brains of users. Have you noticed that every single time you sit down to watch a film, you're going to be on your phone by about 15 minutes in? And if not you, then certainly someone close to you. Our attention spans are shrinking at an alarming rate. According to Oxford Blue, most users even go so far as to exhibit clear signs of addiction to their screens. If watching a video longer than 30 seconds is deemed stressful, then what are the chances that anyone would sit down and read a book? Out of all of my friends, only one of them had read a book for fun in the last year. All of them use social media, of course, as we are on the older side of being teenagers. But knowledge is completely unattainable without reading. We don't have the attention span to want to learn, and it is therefore unfathomable for someone living in this day and age to be a philomath. The second thing I blame for our lack of pursuing knowledge and learning is the fact that we use knowledge as a means to an end. Circling back to the point I made earlier in this video, the question of why do we need to know this is inevitable. You won't always have a calculator in your pocket, is what our math teachers would say. Well, now we do. And even then, we would learn the material so we could get a good grade on an exam, so we could get a good grade in a class, so we could get a good transcript for colleges to look at, so we could get into colleges. So through this common American lens, do we only learn in order to go to college? But college in and of itself is just more learning, so why even do that? The likely answer to that question would be so that one could get a better job. The two most common majors, according to Harvard Crimson, are economics and computer science. Due to their fast turnaround rate and immediate applicability to the real world, maybe even a guarantee of a job after graduating makes them appealing choices for people my age. In this world, education has a very specific purpose. It is a means to an end. But education has its own end. No matter how much learning one does, or in the example used, what level of job one has, there will always be more to learn. According to the Financial Times, material wealth is necessary for survival. It can also help satisfy some ends, but it is not an end in itself. Happiness is an end. The experience of beauty is an end. Knowledge is also an end. The article is called Education is a Worthwhile End in Itself by Martin Wolf, and I highly recommend the article for a more in-depth analysis of this topic. I will link it below. The third thing that I blame for our resentment of learning, if you could call it that, is the way that joy has been sucked out of every learning environment, especially in America. For example, here are some of the required cases to know for the average AP US government class. I'm just going to list them. Marbury versus Madison, McCulloch versus Maryland, Schmenck versus the United States, Brown versus Board of Education, Engel versus Vidal, Baker versus Carr, Gideon versus Wainwright, Tinker versus Des Moines Independent Community School District, New York Times Community versus United States, Wisconsin versus Yoder, Shaw v. Reno, United States v. Lopez, McDonald versus Chicago, Citizens United v. Federal Election Commission. How fun was that? School, in many ways, is not about real learning. It is about memorizing and regurgitating facts. In my aforementioned humanities course, we were doing deep dives into the minds of Dante and Plato and Aristotle and all the other greats, whilst my peers in the regular English classes sat and attempted to memorize vocab words that they would inevitably forget by next week. However, it was not just the material that made our class so interesting and exciting. Week 1 of freshman year, our teacher introduced us to the word digressio, which is a Latin term for digression, which is to get off topic in a discussion. This was his way of telling us it was okay to not stay on topic all the time. This opened a true world of possibilities for my class. Boring classes of reading epic poems would turn into periods of talking specifically about epithets, which would somehow turn into everyone in the class being assigned an epithet based on their personality by our professor. Virgil guiding Dante through hell was, with a couple digressions, an ethical debate about homosexuality coexisting with the Bible. After seeing this firsthand, I can confidently say that the key to a successful class is participation and debate. Digressios. With the amount of content a single AP class has to cover over the course of a school year, there is no time to drift from that set path. You must memorize those facts, retain them for as long as possible before the test, and then cleanse your brain to get ready for the next round of facts that have no meaning to you and your life. My fourth point and last thing that I blame for our education crisis is the economy and lack of time. The American dream is a 9-to-5 job that barely pays for the basic necessities, that is so exhausting that every second not spent at work is spent resting in order to be able to go back to work. The average yearly income in the US is around $30,000, with the average down payment on a house being about $35,000, according to Forbes. The average yearly cost of living for a single person is around $25,000. Assuming you stick to the bare necessities and don't spend money on anything extra, which would include hospital visits, car repairs, house repairs, so on, it would take upwards of 7 years to save up just for the down payment on a house. That's not even counting how much the mortgage would cost, how much furnishing the house would cost, the cost of repairing any broken things in the house, so on and so forth. But being a homeowner is not the most important thing in the world. There are other options. So let's focus on the sheer amount of time that the average person spends on a job. Let's assume you are working 40 hours a week with no extra work or overtime work whatsoever, and you sleep 10 hours every night. Okay, assuming it takes an hour to get ready in the morning and 2 hours to prep, cook, eat, and clean dinner. That's an extra 3 hours of work right there. Not counting the hour that you would get for lunch during the day, of course, not paid. That leaves an extra 2 hours a day to get all the extra things done that need to be completed. Assuming you use the restroom 3 times throughout the day, that's 30 minutes on the toilet. Want to take a shower? That's another 30 minutes. If your job is only 15 minutes away, then that's another 30 minutes a day of just commuting to work and back. All of that necessary shit leaves a total of 30 minutes of free time per day, which is insane. And I don't think I need to prove to anyone that 30 minutes of free time a day is insane. So when would you have time to sit down and read a book? It's no wonder people are not wanting to learn anymore. There's no time to do so. And they are probably exhausted. That lifestyle is incredibly taxing both physically and emotionally. Circling back to the point I made about the economy from earlier, no one can afford to quit this horrible lifestyle because it is absolutely necessary to just get by in life. That last point was a bit more depressing than I intended, and I apologize. I've been feeling a bit existential lately. So, what's the solution to this crisis? In my day-to-day life, I try to use my time as wisely as I can. A big solution for me has been to listen to podcasts and video essays like this one, since they can be played in the background while completing other tasks. I also try to read at least 10 pages of a book every day, which keeps me on the path of consistently learning things. I try to get my friends to engage in discourse around different subjects that we find interesting, and I spend my time writing fun little research essays like this one. Knowledge is incredibly important and is one of the most respectable traits, in my opinion. I've never been good at writing conclusions, so I'm gonna end the video while I'm ahead here. If you want more content like this, let me know. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. I'm editing right now, but before I can end this, I have to show off my pants. That is all.